properly use high frequency ventilation, you set an amplitude, which is the size of the breath, the size of that puff of air that's going in, and we set the hertz, so how fast we want it to go. So think about how on the chest vest we were able to control how fast it went and then that strong pressure. Well, we incorporate the same concept when we talk about high frequency ventilation. In order to use high frequency, you have to flip the knob on here, but then also in the back of this machine, you have to turn it on. So turn the key in the on position. Fortunately, a lot of high frequency oscillators do just that. They're not a ventilator high frequency combo, but they're strictly a high frequency ventilator. All right, so now with this one, this is the FSR as I said before. We have a different, slightly different setup with this one. Where blue is our what? Inspiratory limb. All right, so it tells us. Oh, somebody set it up wrong. Look at that. Did they set it up wrong?
No, that was right.
How do you know?
Because
Oh, okay. All right, just checking. It tells you to the patient. All right, from the patient. So even if you forget the colors, you can read and see that you have it set appropriately. All right, so now that you've identified that, we have this other line here. This is a proximal airway pressure line. This is how this machine knows that there's a leak in the system. All right, using this proximal airway pressure line. This line is contained in the same setup as the circuit. So this isn't something extra that you got to go get. It's actually in the packaging. All right, so with this airway pressure line, you have your port that's right here. And when you first get the circuit, you have this little adapter that's over it, that's keeping it covered, the little cap there. Just take the cap off, take your airway pressure line, and place it in like so. The other end connects on the proximal airway pressure nipple here. Okay? So just make sure that you have that set up appropriately. All right, so now we flip this thing on, we turn it on, it's going to get loud and beep at us and all that fun stuff. All right, now from a setting standpoint, the settings are relatively easy. So we'll place that there for now. We have two modes of ventilation that we can use, CPAP and SIMV. This is your mode knob here. We have CPAP, SIMV is on the bottom. We have two sub modes, if you want to call it that, where we have a continuous flow mode and then we have demand flow. Well, to make that, or to put it in simpler terms, think about the spacer versus the aero chamber. It's a whole lot easier to get that MDI using a spacer for neonatal patients than it is opening up that valve on the aero chamber, right? Well, that same concept applies for this particular ventilator. Do you want to make it easy for your patient to breathe and have them on that continuous flow? Or do you want to make them work a little bit? Do you want to let them breathe through that one-way valve, that demand valve? All right? You don't get an order for that. Therapist dependent. Look at your patient. You make the decision as to which one of those you're going to use. All right? So that's our mode there. Looking at the actual settings, flow rate, what's our flow rate supposed to be set on for neonates? All right, so 8 is a comfortable number. Our ventilatory rate, if we're going to make adjustments in any of these values, we push our knob in and turn to the right to increase, or push in and turn to the left to decrease. So we'll just stay with the trend. We'll put the rate on 60. All right. Peak inspiratory pressure, we'll put that on 15. My eye time, comfortable number, 0.35. Remember, you don't get an order for your rise time, for your eye time. So it's therapist dependent, whatever you think your patient would benefit from. And then before we look at our other settings, we have our alarm here. This is a low inspiratory pressure alarm. And this normally corresponds with whatever PEEP you have set here. All right, so looking at our PEEP, the PEEP knob is here. And if we want to see how much we have set, we'll actually have to look at it in another area. All right, so let's look at the alarms first, then we'll look at PEEP, so we can see everything else that this ventilator has to offer. So, looking at alarms, remember I said that the low inspiratory pressure should correspond with our PEEP. Well, we also have a high pressure alarm, and that's what this white knob is here. Okay? So everyone listen, just listen to the breath. Just listen. Just quiet. You don't really hear anything, do you? You hear the machine kind of doing its thing, giving the breath being released. That's it. All right, so I'm going to make adjustments in the high pressure alarm. Okay, that's my high pressure alarm. I have it set. That extra hiss that you hear, the hissing sound, that's the release of the pressure out of this valve. So you don't have a numerical value to set that, to use to set that. You have to listen for it. The point that you hear that release, that is where you set your high pressure relief valve. All right, so it's kind of like, remember MLT, MOV, when we were talking about cuff pressures for trach tubes and ET tubes. Same thing, the moment that you hear that slight leak, that is how you know you have this set appropriately. All right, so the high pressure set, low pressure is here, but let's look at our PEEP. If you want to adjust or set your PEEP, you have to use this knob in order to do it. All right, so anything in red for this ventilator, red means it's something that we have set. So we flip our knob all the way to where it says PEEP setting, and we see our PEEP is set on 5. If we want to increase our PEEP, we go to the PEEP knob, push it in, and make adjustments. All right. So it's beeping at us, saying, hey, you got a problem here. Well, now at this point, you hear your high pressure valve. It's a lot more active. It's a lot louder sounding. Well, that means that you need to make an adjustment to this valve so that it doesn't recognize it as being a leak in the system. Okay? Low pressure, our low pressure alarm, we just make the adjustments in our low pressure like so. And that's for our alarm. So on the bare minimum, it should at least match whatever your PEEP is doing. Okay? All right, so now those are the alarms. If you want to see your IDU ratio, flip the knob, it's there. Your E time, it's there. Your duration of positive pressure, that's a reflection of your IDU ratio. That could be displayed right there in that particular screen. As you can tell, it's kind of loud. From a measurement standpoint, all measured values are displayed here. So fortunately, you can see that your measured values are your PEEP, mean airway pressure, and your PIP. Those are the only 3 that you have. All right. And pretty much that's it. So that is the infant star. Shouldn't be that difficult for you. Questions, comments, concerns? Nope. Got it? Ready to check off, right?
Yep.